Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Indian politicians are a breed apart. They, instead of solving problems, create problems. And the beauty is that sometimes they create a problem, raise an issue that has no hope of ever meeting its target. The purpose is only to create confusion, to create chaos, and to continue with your personal agenda. Every legislature we have seen is either unicameral or bicameral. Unicameral is one house, bicameral is two houses. In India also, this system was adopted, but it was adopted very selectively. When the Constituent Assembly was meeting, it was argued that the second house, the upper house, is required. But then the framers of the Constitution disagreed. And they said that, okay, as far the federal government is concerned, you can have a second house to check hasty legislation and bring diverse voices into legislature. But the members of the assembly did not accept this contention as far the states, the provinces were concerned. I was reading that K.T. Shah from Bihar said the second chamber would involve considerable outlay from public exchequer on account of salaries, allows our members, and incidental charges. The only aid party bosses to distribute more patronage and help in obstructing or delaying legislative process which the people have given their vote for. But still, they agree to give bicameral status. I'll come to this just now. But then, now, after winning the election, Mamta, Didi they call her elder sister, but the fury, I'll call her, of Mamta is now unleashed on the federal government. She insults the prime minister with impunity. She disregards the orders of the federal government with disdain. And now she has said that there should be an upper chamber. And that's just to needle the center. She knows it, that the center would never permit it. It wants an upper house because at present 6 other states out of 29 in India, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Karnataka have the upper states. And the new Congress government in West Bengal says that they promise to the people to have an upper house. Now you tell me, how's the ordinary person concerned whether the upper house should be there or not? And the upper houses are, for the most part, an anomaly. What does House of Lords do? Nothing. The Chancellor of Exchequer sitting on the wool sack is just a figure, and the members are just dawdling old lords and ladies. If they disagree with the House of Commons, they are impediment and obstacle. They are the barriers to progress. If they agree, they are superfluous. So either you have an extra agent, okay, it is good to have, according to the scientists, to have a second chamber to deliberate so that the popular decisions which may not be pertinent to the country's progress are not taken. At the most, it can be delaying chamber. But they forget that in India, the system is different. The governor is the representative of the federal government, and he can deny accent to any law. and then it goes back to the assembly. So the governor is doing the job what an upper house would do. And this demand for the upper house in Bengal is being revived when itself the house had abolished it 50 years ago. 5 decades, half a century. And yesterday, very pertinently, Mr. Singh Jaspal made a comment that it's like two monkeys fighting over a piece of bread. But unfortunately, sorry, two cats. But unfortunately, there's no monkey now to decide and take away the bread, and both the cats would be looking, waiting, the void, unable to decide who's the winner. The second uh, Chamber of Commerce now has this constitutional limitation. The law says that any state assembly can abolish the upper house or create a new house. But there's a caveat. It must be approved by the parliament. Now, suppose Tamil Congress passes a law that they want an upper house, a council, and then they can only request the federal government to pass a law. And the federal government is not going to pass it. They are not going to satisfy the ego or the promise of Mamta. So the result, it would be another flashpoint between West Bengal government and the federal government. So what I said was it was just to needle it, to trouble it. And if federal government agrees, then it will be seen as a defeat for Modi and a win for Mamta. If federal government doesn't do it, it will be said that they are negating the voice of the people who have elected Mamta because that was a part of manifesto. Now, how did the second house concept came in India? It was not a copy of the House of Lords. It was not a copy of the American Senate. The legislatures in of two houses bicameral has a long history in India. In 1919, Montagu-Chelmsford reform led to the formation of the Council of State. And then in 1935, the Government of India set up a bicameral legislature in the Indian provinces. It was under this law that the Legislative Council was first started in Bengal in 1937. And during the framing, as I said, there was a dispute whether they should be there or not there. And ultimately, the framers said, okay, we'll try it in some states. And in some states, we'll have a unicameral, one house, and others will have. So Bihar, Bombay, Madras, Punjab, UP, and West Bengal would have two houses, upper house and the lower house. Then they gave the state the option of abolishing the house, upper house, or creating a upper house by passing a resolution in the legislative assembly. But they gave the federal government authority to overrule if there was a not acceptable to the federal government. So, secondly, they also said that the upper house would not be a checking store. As a matter of fact, they can pass a law, the federal lower house. The upper house, if it vetoes it or goes against it, the lower house can overrule the council, the upper house. And then, another thing was there that the membership of the upper house, the number of the upper house, would not exceed one-third the strength of the popular elected legislative assembly. The Bengal Council, as I said earlier, had been established way back in 1937. And the fourth general election in India in 1967, led to Congress losing the power in West Bengal. The United Front of 14 governments was formed, and Ajay Mukherjee was the chief minister. Deputy chief minister was Jyoti Basu, who later became the chief minister. Then P.C. Ghosh, who had once been chief minister, he wanted the power, and then they said that the upper house should be abolished. So the upper house was abolished at that time, and the federal government agreed to this demand. After midterm elections in 1969, the 32-point program was adopted, and one of them was legislature council, the upper house abolition. Now, Article 168 came into being. So the federal government accepted the resolution, and both houses of the parliament approved it. So immediately after Bengal abolished it, Punjab also abolished it. And however, it was not a problem at all. It was never a political issue. It was at the most thought to be a financial issue because it was a wastage of the funds. So in Tamil Nadu, creating a council has been a fight between federal government and the central government for the last 30 years. In 1986, one government of AIADMK abolished it, and then DMK wanted to re-establish it, and now DMK has come in power. Similarly, Congress in 2018 in Madhya Pradesh, in Andhra Pradesh, the demand is there. Now, the purpose is that to create another house where the defeated representatives of the ruling party can be accommodated by nomination or by indirect election. There are no direct elections to the council. So Mamta wants to enhance her vote and create a second chamber where she can satisfy the demand of the defeated legislators because 77 seats have gone to BJP from 3 to 77. So 74 defeated MLAs have to be accommodated. So what best way? Create a house. Or shall I call it a warehouse where these defeated people are accommodated. So the select committee, whether it's Congress promise in Madhya Pradesh, DMK promise in Madras, and West Bengal, is going to create a reasonable action on the part of the opposition to create a council. And as I said, to needle Prime Minister Modi from three sides. So it's a triangular attack on the federal government. And it's more a show of strength by the opposition to say, yes, they can get it done. You see, apart from these three states, there are two other states. Assam Assembly has already passed a resolution in 2010, and Rajasthan Assembly in 2012 for setting up the Legislative Assembly. And bills are pending in Rajya Sabha. They have not been approved in Rajya Sabha. Similarly, there is a bill. While these states are wanting the upper houses, Andhra Pradesh wants to abolish the upper house. So they have passed a bill. So another bill has been approved, but it has not been introduced in the parliament to abolish the Andhra Pradesh legislative council. So that's a concern. The question that faces us is the country to be a blind spectator to the selfish demands of the leaders? Is the constitution to be used to satisfy the ego and those people who have been rejected by the electorate? Is it not an act of dishonesty? And in fact, cheating because the people have rejected those people. The in a popular election. So why should they be member of the upper house by indirect manner? Is it not, in fact, a sport for the dishonesty? Is it not a conduit to corruption? And what's the accountability? As I said, upper houses everywhere, even in Canada, they are useless. If they agree, they are superfluous. If they disagree, they're just an impediment. And the next session, the House of Commons or the lower house, everywhere can overrule it. Except in Canada, USA, where Senate is extremely powerful. And in fact, Senate is again, there's a difference. Senate in USA is directly elected, so it's a real representative of the people. While in other countries, the upper house is not elected, it is mostly nominated. In England and in Canada, in England, the House of Lords, in Canada, it's 100% nominated. In India, it's indirectly elected, and some members are nominated. Same is in the councils in the states in India. They are not directly elected. So their constituencies, the teachers elected, the universities elected, the municipalities elected. So indirectly they are elected, and some members are appointed in the name of art, culture, management, but they are basically those people whom the government wants to patronize. It's very rarely that real competent people are nominated. So basically, the upper houses are a useless burden on the public exchequer, and they must not be allowed, especially if they lead to political ill will, if they lead to disturbed conditions. And then another thing, on the one side, they are saying that we should look for the welfare of the people. And if they look after the welfare of the people, in this time of pandemic, when the whole activity should be geared to helping those people who are suffering and to avoid suffering the people who are still not in the grip of the pandemic, to create this political jamboree, this circus, is a height of selfishness and stupidity, especially when you know that your desire would never be accepted till at least 2024. And who knows, the indications as they are, 2024 he'll come back to power. So the whole scenario, political scenario, especially as far as the opposition rule states and the federal government is concerned, is extremely murky. And West Bengal government under Mamta is basically geared to lead the revolt against the federal government. And I have learned from some reliable sources that they are also going to ask for a new rule that the sectors, the concurrent list of the Constitution should be amended, and all the powers in the concurrent list, which are at present both under the federal and under the states, should be transferred to the states to make them more powerful, more autonomous, more democratic. All the jargon which has no meaning. Let's be very honest. As a matter of fact, this demand is a precursor to greater economy, so that the writ of New Delhi doesn't run. And I don't know what the Prime Minister is going to do, but I do know that if such a demand had been raised by an opposition party which is only aimed at creating a distraction, Madam Gandhi would have simply nipped in the bud and found some excuse to dismiss the government, call for new elections. Whether Modi is capable of that, I don't know. But Mrs. Gandhi would have surely done it. Nehru would have argued, discussed, and in the discussion he would have suffocated the demand. Rajiv and others, they would have simply accepted the facts. Okay, let be there. But Modi is a different sort of an animal. He is a very shrewd animal. He'll make it linger, make people feel that he is doing it, and not do it. So he'll create such a situation that Mamta's action would appear ridiculous as it is and make her a target of public anger in the next elections. So this is going to be like a self-destroying weapon. It's a boomerang. She has thrown it on the federal government, and the federal government, if it's capable enough, which it is, would ensure that the weapon goes back to her and hits her badly. I wish these politicians, whether of India or anywhere else, at least have some sense of public accountability, honesty, integrity, which at present is zero, zilch, nada. Thank you.